Okay, we're going to get started. I'd like to welcome everybody. This is a student-sponsored event. West Michigan's most influential quality professionals are with us. We're going to have a panel discussion on contemporary issues in quality, and it looks like we have a pretty good turnout. How many from Management 370 here? All of you, right? Good thing. Anybody from other courses or from the public or off the street, or show of hands? We have one, Paula. Welcome, Paula. Okay. For those of you who may not know me, which is probably none of you, Don Brecken, and for many of you, I'm your advisor, your academic advisor. I'm also your instructor for all of you in this case, it looked like. And I'm first and foremost a quality professional, and these are my colleagues. So, a sampling of them. All right, and I already mentioned Paula. Paula Koenig is a professor at Ferris State University. Paula, there we go. Thank you for coming. I have to thank in advance here Ferris State University for allowing us to do the program. Much appreciated. Ferris State Grand Rapids Marketing. We have quite a marketing group. They do a super job. And their support has been, over the years, have been much appreciated. The same with Student Services for Ferris, and they provided the refreshments, those are some gourmet cookies. GRCC audiovisual personnel have done a super job setting this up, and to watch them with the microphones and do all their tests. It's kind of fun. Special thanks to we have Chad Bossman up in the booth, volunteer for Management 370, who is videoing the event. The event will be televised on GRCC TV, so check your programming for when that will be played. They'll play it several times. Many of us have. Yeah, they're chuckling because some of their colleagues have said, "Hey, I saw you last night. You know, I had to work with you all day. Now I have to watch you on TV." My aunt was going through the channels and one evening when she couldn't sleep and said, "Hey, there's Donnie." Yeah, I can't get away from the Donnie name. But it will also be on YouTube. Posted on YouTube, and for those of my Management 370 students who missed it, they'll be watching that on YouTube and providing a 3 to 5 page summary of the event.
Single space?
No, not single. Well, hey, that's a great idea. Double spaced. And also a special thanks to our student branch of the American Society for Quality that plans and puts this together. And we have with us, we have our student branch secretary, Justina, over here. There we go. And we don't have our student branch vice chair, Clayton. He couldn't make it because he's got, I guess, some kind of exams tonight. And we have our student branch chair, Amber. And what I'd like to do now is introduce our speakers, and I'll introduce our moderator, and I'll turn it over to Amber. Let's see here. I'm just going to go down the program here with who's here. We have Michael Hurt. Michael is warranty manager at ADAC Automotive. His 30 years experience includes quality management, quality engineering, and supply chain management in the automotive and office furniture industries. He's a certified manager of organizational excellence, certified quality engineer, certified quality auditor, certified quality technician. Michael is a past chair of the Grand Rapids section of ASQ, the American Society for Quality. And recently, Michael was elected as Fellow of ASQ, Fellow of the American Society for Quality. Real proud of Michael. Next, down the list here, we have Brian Horstman. Brian is also an ASQ Fellow and a past chair of the Grand Rapids section. Brian is the principal engineer of quality at Steelcase. Brian has over 3 decades of experience in quality science. He holds an ASQ certification as a quality auditor, quality engineer, manager of quality and organizational excellence, and he is a Six Sigma black belt. Brian is also a fellow of the Society and a past chair of the American Society for Quality Grand Rapids section. We have Sean Jones. Sean is a quality manager at Shape Corporation Stampings facility in Spring Lake. Sean's responsible for maintaining the quality system to the TS certification standard, as well as leading and/or directing internal process improvement. Sean has served in many different capacities for the Grand Rapids section of the American Society for Quality. He is also a member of GRCC's Quality Science Advisory Committee. And then we have Brian Maas.
Blake Shelton thing.
This guy. Brian Maas is a manager of supply chain quality at Spectrum Health. Brian is well-versed in utilizing Lean Six Sigma process improvement methodologies. He maintains professional certifications through ASQ as a certified Six Sigma black belt, manager of organizational excellence in quality, a quality engineer, and quality auditor. Brian also maintains certifications as a certified professional in healthcare quality and from PMI, a project management professional. Next, we have Sharon Swadner. Sharon is a quality analyst at Thyreca Plastic Products. Sharon is a past chair of the American Society for Quality Grand Rapids section, Section 1001. She has been in the quality arena, the quality business, for more than 33 years. Turn the page. Throughout her career, she has earned certification as an internal auditor, lead auditor, certification for international standards such as TS 6949, which is automotive, aerospace, AS 9100, medical device, ISO 13485. My eyes. And I can never remember that one. And is a certified quality auditor through ASQ. And Michael Tappy.
Not here.
Yeah, well, I just dreamed I talked to him. All right, I didn't have a stroke. I'm okay. I'm okay here. Mike had an emergency and had to cancel last minute, and so did Kathy. And we do have Jim Van Weeren here. Jim Van Weeren is the principal consultant for OnPoint LLC. He's a past chair of the American Society for Quality, Grand Rapids Section 1001. Currently serves the local section as an audit chair, Jim holds professional certifications from ASQ in quality, including a Certified Quality Improvement Associate, Certified Quality Technician, Certified Quality Engineer, and Certified Manager of Quality and Organizational Excellence, just to name a few. And ask Jim about fenestration and his phalaenopsis.
Whoa.
So
I forgot about the phalaenopsis.
I could tell you stories about all these folks, but I won't bore you with that. But now I would like to introduce our moderator. Our moderator is what's your title at a scheduler, senior scheduler?
I'm a technical specialist.
Technical specialist at Intertech, which is a registrar, quality registrar. She's also a full-time student here at Ferris State University. She is also our student branch chair. And I'd like to introduce Amber Heffelbauer, and she's going to moderate the event from here.
I'll have you know, I put my staff, my fellow coworkers, and asked them to give us some fresh questions.
We're in trouble.
Yeah,
Yes.
we haven't crammed for any of those.
I know you are. All right, and I'm just gonna pick these in random. I know you guys have seen some of these. What does quality mean to you, and how would you define it?
We're gonna be first every time.
All right. I guess today I would probably define this differently than I probably would have in the past. Today, quality has a whole different meaning to me than it did maybe 10 years ago. For me, quality has to mean more than just whether or not parts are good and bad. It is a way of operating a business, and it has to be focused on operating a business efficiently and effectively with minimum waste.
I would submit that the point about meeting specs is really derived from customer needs and desires, as well as governmental and codes information. A lot of what we do, or should be doing at least, comes back to what customers want, what customers think they want, in terms of what's actually reasonable and doable at the kind of prices they want. And sometimes we actually have unfulfilled needs that they don't know they have yet. And so quality is really meeting the customer expectations, whether they're spoken or unspoken.
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that a lot. You made me pause. I'll give a two-part answer. I'll use part of my manufacturing background, streamline off of what Brian was saying, in that a lot of fitness for use comes into play because you can measure things dimensionally. You can test product. Hopefully your marketing group has done a good enough customer focus groups that you know what the attributes or features of your product or service are, and that's measurable, and you can get that feedback and say, how well are we doing? Now that I've morphed over and in the healthcare arena, to me comes out more of that expected value. Am I getting, maybe as a patient, am I seeing the outcomes I want or expect to help me live a quality of life at a certain level, depending on why I'm in the healthcare system. So two different arenas, one very measurable, the other very personal of what quality would mean to you.
One of the things that's changed for me over the years is I'm finding that more and more people are conscious not so much of quality in terms of performance or to specification, but in terms of value. What's it really worth and what's it worth to me? I mean, each of us, all of you out there, have made the same decision when you go out to dinner. If you go someplace and buy clothing or shoes, what's it worth to me, and am I willing to pay a price for a perceived higher quality? So quality has a lot of different aspects, and value is only one of them, and that was something I had a hard time learning. The other thing that was hard for me is taking what I know as a quality professional and translating that to dollars and cents and the value for the customer and for the company that I was working for.
Thank you. What made you pursue a career in quality, and how did you choose to go into this field?
It was an accident. Let's be honest. Like many of my colleagues, I didn't, start out, as a little boy saying I want to be a quality engineer when I grow up. As a fireman or a policeman or that kind of stuff. But when I got out of Mich University, I went to work for a local furniture company and exhibited some behaviors that apparently were valued, strong backbone, et cetera, et cetera. We can give them colloquial names. But due to an organizational adjustment, we had somebody who passed away unexpectedly. the dominoes kind of fell. And the organization looked around and said, there's a technical guy who has shown some backbone. Guess what, kid, you're it. I could spell quality just because I did pretty good in English class, but after that I had to learn. It's been a wild ride, but it was not one of those things I planned on doing. I had to learn, and most, this is going to sound like a plug, but you know, a lot of what I learned was from ASQ meetings and publications, and also some classes I took later on at Ferris State way in a long time ago when they ran classes at Union High, and I took a bunch of classes there to more formalize my education and background.
For me, it was a little bit different. I'd been on a project for a year and a half, and in a matter of 4 days, they disbanded the entire project and turned to the 15 of us who were on the project team and said, you have 2 weeks to find a job or we'll move you someplace else. So I took the first posting that came up, which happened to be in the quality department. And that's how I got into quality. It was almost by necessity, just to maintain a job.
Yeah, I'll jump in because it's this same theme you're going to hear here. Many years ago, also was by happenstance. I was working for an organization in Texas, and I think they saw as a young man I was like a little, I won't say pit bull, but a terrier. A lot of dogged determination in getting things done and a willingness to do a whole lot of different things. But first off, understand the product, understand that company and their business. That one day the quality manager approached me and said, hey, I'm looking for a quality engineer, and would you like to join my team? It wasn't even a posting, and I had to ask him, what do they do? You know, what's a quality engineer do? And when he explained the involvement, I said, yeah, it kind of sounds cool. Get to work with everybody, engineers, manufacturing, inventory control, customers at some point in time, sometimes happy, not happy. Hey, that sounds neat. Yeah, I'd like to come on board, and I'm like Brian, I then had to learn, you know, what did that mean? And a lot of that was self-instruction at the time, just getting a hold of Ford Motor Company books. And that's where I learned SPC was just by reading on the weekends and trying to learn to apply it in business. And then went back to school.
So I've had the fortune or misfortune, if you think of it that way, of working in probably every level of quality that you can imagine. And like Brian, of course, you don't think about growing up and being a quality, you think about firemen and policemen. But what I've learned is we actually do all those things. I'm the fireman, I'm the policeman, I'm the baseball player, I'm the catcher. You name it, the quality guy normally does it. And typically that's how you get into quality, is being a person with a lot of tools in your toolbox.
That's about what happened to me also. Is they said, oh, wouldn't you like to expand a little bit, and we need someone to do auditing for the company. And I had no clue of what to do. But we learn, and if you have attention to detail, you can work with people. Those are the main things that you really need to know, and the other things will fall into place.
I ended up applying for a job as a final inspector because I knew how to read blueprints and I knew how to use measuring instruments. And, a little bit closer here, there we go. I applied for a job, company here in Grand Rapids, and because I knew how to read blueprints, and my education was in how to make blueprints, as far as drafting and that type of thing. And I knew how to use precision instruments, so I applied for the job. At that time, the whole quality department were probably 2 or 3 years from retirement. At that time, you got into quality because you couldn't make production rate anymore, but you knew everything there was to know about the parts. So I was kind of the young kid, 22 years old, working with a bunch of 60-year-olds. But one of the things, and some of the other people up here have talked about it, is that you start learning about all of the different tools in your toolbox, how to get along with people, how to problem solve, how to evaluate the situation, how to work with other people instead of working by yourself, and persistency sometimes. All of those pieces all fit right within the profession. And those are all of the things that basically are the attributes that you'd be looking at as far as somebody within the particular profession. You know, the statistics you can learn, the blueprint reading you can learn, the using the equipment you can learn, but the attributes as far as working with people, those pieces of the toolbox are the things that kind of keeps you in the profession and being able to interface with everybody.
Thank you. What is the important professional member associations in your profession, and how has it helped in your career?
First of all, ASQ. When I joined the Grand Rapids section back in '78, and at that time, again, a lot of older people that were part of it. What was Lear Siegler at the time was a big contributor. They were aerospace. They were making aerospace components. A lot of different varieties of industries that were part of it. One of the things was interfacing with people that have, lack of a better term, been around the block a couple of times in order to learn exactly how they handled things. So as far as the quality profession, ASQ and the local section definitely a benefit. I'm also a member of OESA, which is Original Equipment Suppliers Association, their warranty council. I'm a past chair of that particular group. Been working with them for the last 10 years. The subset of quality being in warranty is over the past 10 or so years has escalated as far as suppliers are concerned. So that's another one where, again, working with other people, learning things from other people as far as those benefits. Of course, ASQ with certifications are all beneficial. It helps people recognize what your knowledge base is as far as that particular area of the profession. Creates kind of a common line. If all of us are here that certified, those of us that are certified as a quality manager and organizational excellence, they know that we've got a strong baseline as far as our knowledge by passing and maintaining that certification. Because it's more than just taking the test once. You need to maintain it also. So that ends up being something not only internally being recognized by your peers for that certification, but also externally as far as employers understanding that if I've got people that are applying for a job and it ties into that particular certification, whether it be Six Sigma, quality management, quality engineering, you know that they've got that baseline.
Yeah, I'm going to mimic most of that, so I won't rehash it. ASQ, obviously, number one in my background, in my career, what's helped me. But early on, I realized that, the certification does just what Michael said. It gives you that recognition, or it is that stamp that you put some effort into it, and you probably put some effort into it at home or on the weekends to, again, can further your knowledge base, further your learning. I've worked with people with no certifications, with no college degrees that I would still put on a team today as far as problem-solving capability. But if I want someone who can see the whole vision and put a package together and set up some structure to go about that problem-solving, I'd look for someone maybe that's been through some certification. So ASQ definitely is way up there for an obvious reason, see why we're here tonight. Secondary for me was the PMP. Through the PMI, Project Management Institute, is getting a project management professional certification. That stamp goes a long way for some reason with many employers today, looking for someone who has some structured thinking once again, and they could say, okay, you've proven that maybe by taking a test. I downplay a lot of my own certifications because I say anyone can take a test, but it's then being able to show that you know how to apply the concepts and the thought in execution more important than just having the certification. But the cert gets you into the door.
It helps you keep a job also, many times. You see, and especially automotive, the up and down turns, how the economy goes, and, you're more likely to retain your job. And if you have a college education, that's why you're here. Just never stop learning. That's the whole idea, is keep yourself current with the industry, whatever industry you go into. Always look for something new, something better. Make yourself very valuable.
My affiliation with ASQ has kept me employed for a good number of years. But more than that, once you decide to join a professional organization, I don't care what it's called or what it happens to be for you or for any of the other folks here on the board, I think they'll agree, you start acting, I started acting differently. I started acting like a professional. And as soon as you start doing that, people notice. And then they find out that you can do things that nobody else can do or that very few people can do, and that moves you up. I got laid off after 29 years at a company here in town, and at the time I was teaching the local ASQ Certified Quality Manager refresher course. And there were students there who were from another company here in town, and I jokingly said, oh, by the way, when the course is done, you can have my resume as well as your certificates because I need a job. 2 days after the course was done, I got a call, and they hired me. I hadn't been there 6 months, and I was being recruited by another company here in West Michigan because they knew what I could do and had seen my name out there on ASQ websites and had heard of people who had gone through courses and talked about things that I had done. So it does more for you than just, one, keep you employed or keep you professional. If you use it to the best of your ability, you'll begin to act like a professional, and that's the biggest thing for me.
Given the group we're looking and dealing with tonight, your social media, the contacts, again, I joined healthcare about 7 years ago, but following up on who I am, I went after that Certified Professional in Healthcare Quality, that CPHQ designation, because I said, if I'm going to be in healthcare, I need to show that I want to be in healthcare and healthcare quality. No sooner did I put that CPHQ designation on my online resume, I had 8 hits within 3 weeks of people looking to recruit me away because that was a requirement in their system. They wanted a CPHQ. You had to have it to get in the door. So, resumes and your background are being so sorted through the algorithms today out there that, it might take 500 to 600 to 1 ratio before a human will touch your resume. So anything that differentiates you, gets you past, I call it the sortathon, so that someone might actually take a look at who you are. And again, it's a differentiator.
Thank you. What do you enjoy most about your job? Sharon has a big smile on her face.
Every day is different. You go into, your workplace and you think, all right, I'm going to do this, this, and this today, get an accomplishment, and you're not there 5 minutes, and that's out the door, and they have you doing this and that. It's a treasure hunt. That's what it is for me every day. You're problem solving, you're trying to get to the root cause, find out what process this went through. How did they reject all of these pieces? Why was it rejected? And, get down to exactly, what's it costing the company? Everything is at a cost. So for me, it's, a treasure hunt and enjoyable thing every day.
You said that very well. Some days you might feel like you're in that cement mixer, but yeah, you can definitely, you can have a plan for every week or every day, and most days you have to alter that plan based on what comes up, but it goes back to why we're in quality. Most of us enjoy that problem solving you mentioned, and we enjoy the challenge. We enjoy seeing things fixed. So if others are having issues, we like to feel like we have accomplished something by at least the end of that day or that week in helping somebody fix an issue. But yeah, it's not predictable, but that's what makes it fun.
Say one of my favorite aspects of my job and working in this profession is just simply being able to engage people on a level that they're typically not engaged from people in the work environment. Typically, supervisors don't engage people to find out what they're thinking or what their thought process is behind when they do something. And being able to take the time and converse with operators, supervisors, and talk at people and with people from all levels of an organization and understand things from their perspective and be able to do that day in and day out. I find that fulfilling, not only because you can engage your people, but for myself, I'm able to know things about a company that most people don't, just by being inquisitive and asking questions. Like was said earlier, we like problem solving. It's in our DNA, so being able to stumble upon problems that people don't know they have just because you've talked to a succession of people that normally aren't engaged in the same conversation. And I think that in itself gives you opportunity to find new and better ways to motivate and challenge yourself.
So besides variety being the spice of life, what really floats my boat is watching little baby ideas grow up into real life, marketable, successful product lines. I've been doing that for a long, long time now. My first product launch was in 1981, before most of you were born. And
How old are you anyway?
I'm old. I'm older than you think.
Jeez, man, that is before I was born.
But it's a lot of fun for me to go through the cycle from napkin sketch from an industrial designer or a marketing person who had a conversation with some customer or dealership, and take that idea and help bring it from fuzzy to solid product and watch them sell like hotcakes and make money. That's what we're there for, right? Meeting needs and making money, and that helps us pay our bills too. But that's what really gets me going. It's a lot of fun, and my wife thinks I'm crazy because we'll be watching TV and all of a sudden the crazy guy here will start yelling because that's my product that they're showing on TV. Sad but true story.
Yeah, I think the other part of making it, when I call it fun, is all of us have experienced, if you want to be a fly on the wall and watch a major issue drop into the middle of what would be a normal day or a production line or something, just watch like the bomb hit, and then just watch the scurrying all over the place, and you just kind of watch all the emails crank up. You just watch the system get into gear, phone calls, pages, emails, and it's fun to be able to, but important to be able to sift through all that noise and try to work and through the on-site interviewing and finally hit that key or find that vein to follow to mine down to that nugget of where that cause may be coming from, to then start to see, okay, we were maybe all way over here where actually what's going on is here. But it's being able to get out there, ask the right questions, talk to the right people who have the knowledge to settle down that initial excitement. I think I've heard it viewed many years ago as well in Dallas, Texas, as I think he was putting a note on a print, FBLP. I said, what the heck is that? It was a geometric class. He said, that's when you go into full bore linear panic. You just run until you hit a solid immovable object in a straight line, bounce off that and run and hit another one. So that's what you can watch some of these teams doing when a very significant issue happens to fall in everyone's lap. And you want to bring some organization to that chaos.
Thank you. What effect has technology had on quality improvement efforts?
Technology.
All right, so I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get it out of the way because my friend Brian here said this a couple times. There are those of us in this profession that were born in the 80s. We weren't all doing this stuff in the 80s. So I have not had as much experience with some of these guys to see some of the progression in technology. But just even over the past 5 years, the amount of computing capacity that is available to us and data collection is sometimes to the level of unmanageable, that we get inundated in collecting data, analyzing data, and we forget the most basic of problem solving, that sometimes the solution is the easiest thing there. So we get so caught up in the C charts and doing all of the data collection because Minitab and all those things, and Excel make these things a quick thing to do, and you don't have to bust out the 3-page long formula to figure something out. So we just calculate more, and we do less action, I think, now.
So back in the day when we had slide rules and paper,
Sign bars.
it was a little more difficult, right? You had to do a lot more work to come up with data. You had a lot more work to do your analysis. You had to sit down and type up a memo and then send it out for people to know what was going on. So technology came along, and now it's really, really easy. You can push buttons and magic happens, and there you are. What used to take 3 days is now a 37-second blip on a screen, and there's the answer. But it's a double-edged sword. People perhaps aren't as thoughtful about the data, because it's just a button you push, a bunch of data, things go in, magic happens, and there's an answer, and they haven't really learned what's behind the door necessarily to understand what they're seeing and look at the results, graphs, answers, whatever you want to call them, and say, hey, whoa, 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 something's not right here. The computer said it was true, just like on the internet. It's got to be true, right? So that's one swipe of the sword. The other one is email. Like I said, back in the day we had paper. You had to take some time. It was pretty much an effort, and then somebody ran copies and passed them out to the people who needed to know. Now you just go type, respond to all, boom, and forward it to a bunch of people, boom, and pretty soon you've got hundreds of people getting information coming from everywhere, and all it really does in many cases is stir a pot that may not even need stirring with information that may or may not be accurate and certainly not up to date. And from that standpoint, it makes life a lot more difficult. I like the instantaneousness of type, hit, boom, gone, and I've got information coming from Malaysia or China or Slovakia, Germany, France, whatever. That's cool. But, when I get 28 emails within 40 minutes on the same subject, all with other people chiming in who have no clue even what the product is they're talking about, let alone what's going on, it gets a little frustrating sometimes. So that's what I see before and after technology things.
Yeah, I'll just keep remind me of the humorous stories. This will be an easy night for me. I just keep tapping in after everyone's done some good dialogue. But the concept of alliteration we had as an ASQ topic about 12 or 14 years ago, and what it really means is that we're so busy as a society now with all the communication coming at us, we don't get beyond the subject line or the first 2 sentences in an email anyways. But so alliteration means you're not getting into detail. Well, the notice went out, and I don't think it was 35 minutes later, here started to come the reply alls that said, you guys at ASQ should use spell check, because the people getting the note were reading it as illiterate. We're illiterate, not illiterate. It was alliteration. So the reply back to that individual was, you need to come to the dinner meeting to understand. You got to read the rest of the paragraph to understand what the topic was about. So that's back to my concept about fun to watch sometimes of this madness that can just grow exponentially with people piling on, and it's easy to forward emails and ask somebody to check into this. And that's all that's happening a lot of times nowadays. If you peel the onion back, is somebody out there's got to do the analysis and go live and look at the problem. But there's everybody pushing the keys and just pushing stuff out. So I agree with that. And my personal experience with a Sharp calculator that cost me $12, probably 25 years ago, I could do all the statistical analysis on a 30-piece or 100-piece sample I needed. Sure, it was time consuming, but it got the job done. Today with Minitab, we're getting a lot of data. People copy the charts, they push them out, and kurtosis and skewness and all sorts of stuff. It's all there, but it doesn't mean anything to the issue at hand. But there's just a whole lot of noise. So you got to really parse it down to what's important, and with that, you have to have that basis of knowledge to know what is important to cut through the cloud. And I think those of us up here, we've learned to cut through that cloud a little quicker to try to get to the heart of the issue. But didn't answer technology, but I'll save that one for another rip here.
Hey Brian, tell the story about the technology and the medication.
No.
It's about the robots.
Well, that's the one I was thinking of. But yes, technology changes. So you want, your feedback loops and what are things out there now to bring us out of I was around some slide rules too. wireless technology. You get into nanotechnology in the medical arena. A company in California developing a proprietary process. They have a nano-sized circuit board that you can put inside your pill, your medication. When you take it, then your stomach acids actually complete the circuit on that mini circuit, that nano-sized circuit, and it'll send a wireless reading to a device on your belt, which can then transfer that wirelessly to your doctor's office if need be, as a proof that you took your medication on time. So again, then all the doctor has to look at is the outliers, who's not taking their medication on time. Because when that was first put out, someone said, well, the doctor doesn't have time to review all that data. Correct. Why would anyone want to review all that data? You program it to look at outliers, but just the concept of being able to do those type things now for high-risk populations is so far ahead of, hi, here's your log, your pill log. Please note at home the date and time you took these pills. Bring it in, and I'll look at it and see if I can see any pattern in all that writing. You really can't. So getting the data using technology and then using it the right way, again, parsing out what's important, let all the stuff that's being met go ahead. Great, keep meeting. Only interested in the outliers and who's not doing what they should be doing. That's kind of a cool one, yeah.
Thank you. Don, I think we'll take some questions if we got any. Nobody?
Open floor,
Ah.
open mic.
Paula, and we got one up here.
Okay, and let's use the handheld mic so we can get it on the recording.
I have a question about the Baldrige Award. Have any of your organizations applied for the Baldrige Award, or do you use the criteria, and what kind of methodologies or processes did you use to follow through?
Well, I'll start while the others are thinking, because I know they have concept. We were exposed to it. We never applied for it when I was in manufacturing. But yes, everyone fired off, and it was good because it expanded I'll call it the requirement scope, or something. Folks felt that if you were doing well to Baldrige criteria, it generally meant that you were very profitable, and all these other indices were being chosen. On the flip side, the contrarian side of that, someone else ran a study that said that most of those companies within 5 years, or because it took such a drain on executive talent to go after the award, just to get the award, that the folks put on that project for the 2 to 3 years wound up without jobs after the time they got Baldrige. So again, you got to pick what it's really for. Is it really to drive the business, or is it egotistical and someone wants another award or a flag out in the lobby or out on the flagpole? So I'm very pragmatic. I don't really care about awards. I'd rather see things and see through auditing that good habits are being executed. But if you can execute good habits and get Baldrige at the same time, fine. Baldrige criteria is still a very good standard setter. It's a very good guideline, very encompassing. Boy, nobody's jumping on the Baldrige.
What he said.
One of the things, and I'm not sure the exposure of the audience has to Baldrige, a lot of times what happens with companies, quality standards, quality procedures, those types of things, and a lot of different companies that are supplying components. They're not manufacturing a finalized product. They have to have quality systems that are compliant with a TS 16949 for automotive, an AS 9000 if you're a supplier for the aerospace, which one is the medical?
1345, medical device manufacturing.
Medical device manufacturing. So that basically you have to have a quality system that's compliant. So it's not management deciding this is how we're going to do our business. It's the industry saying this is what the minimum requirements are for a quality system. Now, what happens with Baldrige is that this is an internationally known criteria as far as business excellence is concerned that isn't really mandated by any particular industry. It's a management decision in order to say, we want to use that criteria in order to evaluate ourselves. A lot of people have said that it's not the award that's the important part as far as the Baldrige criteria. It's the journey, because we learn things about ourselves and how we do our business and how we can improve our business. I've selected different components as far as Baldrige. I've never proposed to my management that we would, look at it in the concept of actually going after an on-site visit or even, going towards getting an award as far as the criteria is concerned. But use different components to continually improve our management system, even beyond what would be the minimum requirements of a quality management technical specification.
Thank you. This gentleman here had a question, Don?
I know with budgeting and quality control.
Don has a microphone, sorry. Get it recorded.
I know with quality control and budgeting, there's a very delicate balance that you have to adhere to, whether you're spending too much or too little, especially with the gentleman from Spectrum and Steelcase, because I'm a little more familiar with those companies than I am the other ones that are up here. I was kind of wondering, as far as not only with your company, but with the other companies that you've seen, do you see companies or corporations erring more on the too much quality control, too little quality control, or do they kind of have it down to the exact science and how much to do nowadays?
Exact science. I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
I guess I would say if you're doing quality control and you're spending money on that, you're spending too much. You need to be doing quality assurance. Control implies that you are somehow trying to inspect the quality in it apart after you've already designed the process. Companies absolutely do cut corners and try and rush to market before doing the upfront design phase things that have to be involved in your quality system. And that's where companies stumble, and you find companies doing excessive sorting, reworking, things of that nature, because they have not made the switch from control to assurance. But I think any money spent in quality is good money if you know what you're spending it on. If you're just blindly throwing money at the problem, then you're always spending too much.
So in my case, at Steelcase, we budget, and again, I'm more or less dedicated to new product development activities. But we budget for our time. There are a number of folks that have a similar function as I do, and we're part of the project teams. We're budgeted for our hours and expenses. We have time to worry about, just like everybody else. We have expenses. There may be some investigatory travel to a supply site or a factory. There's development runs on site that may need to take place, particularly if they're out of town, need to be there to make sure things are copacetic. We have to pay for services, layouts and measurements and testing and things like that. So we're very cognizant of what it takes to invest in a new product. On the other side of the house, we're very, very aware of the cost of non-quality and the levels of DPPM. So we have set targets, for example, in new product development, that any new product needs to be at least 50% DPPM of the preceding like products. No ifs, ands, or buts. Came down from very tip-top, and it's my job to help the project teams figure out, if we're going to make a new glass, what do we know about things that hold things, other glasses, other containers, yada, 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 and how do we improve upon that? What kind of problems have they had? How we make sure we never have that happen to this new product? And those kind of things are also an investment, but as we look at the two sides of development and life cycle, it's also a balancing act, right? We can't afford to have 10,000 quality engineers squeezing every penny out of everything, because then you make no money. So you have to pick your battles, and we try very, very hard to make sure we're picking the right projects to go after in terms of new revenue, the right projects to go after in terms of cost savings and avoidance and improvements, because it takes money to make money, and you have to have something left over to run the business with. I don't know if that helps answer your question or not, but, okay.
Where are these
I-
10,000 quality engineers?
I had the opportunity in my career to work with, at a national level with a quality guru by the name of Phil Crosby, who wrote a book, one of his first books was Quality is Free. It's the mistakes that cost you money. And it's not that you don't invest in quality, because you do, what Brian was talking about. Within a life cycle, typically every shift in a life cycle adds a 10 times factor as far as a cost is concerned. If you can avoid a quality problem in the design stage, it won't cost 10 times as much when it gets into the tool building stage. And if you miss it in the tool building stage, it's going to cost you 10 times more when you start doing your sampling. And if you don't cure it in the sampling stage, it'll be 10 times more again in the manufacturing stage. And then even with me, I run into it because a lot of my job is with warranty. So we've manufactured it, we've shipped it to our customer thought it was okay, or it met the needs at that particular time, and then it gets out to a vehicle owner, and then they have to replace my component. And the cost of that replacement is a minimum of 10 times of what I sold that component for as far to the OEM that put it onto the vehicle. You budget for, quality costs, the preventative costs, the costs of nonconformance, the internal and external failure costs. As Sean said, earlier, if it's quality control that you're doing, it's costing you more than preventing the defects before they even happen. And that's part of what I do with my job and working with my people, is taking the problems that we've got and then get it into those on the tube side before we even start cutting the steel and that type of a thing.
Yeah, Michael and Sean have said it from, again, my manufacturing days in my hat. We purposely changed the name of our department. It was quality control. We changed it to quality assurance. That little minor change was huge, though, with a mindset and trying to change culture over time there, that the QC group cannot control everything in this plant. And you get the calls all day long, the firefighting. So we're going to try to assure it through design, through launch, and using some good methodology here to stem the bleeding that had come about in that organization because of too much influence by people who were not engineers and other things, trying to rush to market, rushing bad product out. And to Michael's point, then you pay for it in warranty and field campaigns. Now on the healthcare side, very much the same. There are a lot of tools, a lot of software tools we employ that monitor outcomes and monitor your outlier behavior, possibly of certain service lines, surgical service lines, or certain providers, maybe down to that level of why is this outlier there based on some outcome measures that are tracked, that we report up to the government. And healthcare itself is facing a lot of economic winds and change in the environment with value-based purchasing and some other things that result in government withhold, Medicaid, Medicare withhold. They're going to withhold 2 to 4%, and then based on your performance through the year, you can earn that back. So that's part of the bend the curve philosophy that's going on now. And mixed results. It's a zero-sum game. There will be winners in systems and losers. It's self-funded. There's not extra money that's being poured into the system anymore. So yeah, it's very important to monitor your outcomes so you're not over-inspecting or over-processing, especially in healthcare today.
Thank you. Don, the lady up here had a question first. And I see this gentleman has a question as well.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming to give us your viewpoints, because we do need them as being students. But I would like to ask the panel, I've heard everybody say what they do and how they do it, but I want to know, do you have a team of people that work with you do you have what the book calls a power team, a team of people that you can trust to come to you so you won't have to do all of the leg work to each department that you have to oversee as far as quality is concerned?
Yes.
Yeah. In my particular situation, my organization is a little bit different than my competitors. My competitors have got warranty departments that have got a warranty engineer for General Motors, a warranty engineer for Ford, a warranty engineer for Chrysler. Each customer, and they all they all work just particular with that, and they work on the warranty problems. What I've got in my particular organization is I've got an analyst that works with me and myself as a manager, but then when we get a warranty part back, it goes back to the people in the manufacturing facility, the quality engineers, the production managers. They're the ones that actually do the root cause analysis as far as what happened. As far as my team is concerned, we very flat-lined as far flat organization as far as being able to do that. But at the same time, we don't have people that are second guessing as far as what could have been it. They touch that part every day. They can see what's going on. The same thing as far as avoiding problems. I provide information that engineers, my product development engineers, my program managers input into new designs or changes in designs. They're coming back to me asking for those pieces of input. My department provides information. We provide data, and they're the ones that actually jump and do the actual activities in order to utilize that data or analyze that part. So I've got other peers in other tier ones that ask how they can change their culture in their company in order to do that type of methodology as far as problem solving as opposed to what they're doing right now.
I don't think there's anyone up here that will tell you that they have to do all of this stuff by themselves. My experience has been there are always people who have more knowledge than me and different knowledge than me. In the companies that I've worked for, the people that I respect the most are the people who are doing the jobs on the shop floor. They know more things about what's going on the floor than I could ever learn. So many times, if I were to form a team or I were in a part of a team, I would ask them for input because they're my resident experts. They can tell by the sound of the machine whether they're making good parts. So no one up here, I don't think, has to do any of this alone, although some of us have been in a position where we felt like we were alone. But the good news is in most of today's businesses, teamwork is not only respected but encouraged. And I think you're going to find that as you get into your own organizations. They may not be run as well as you'd like them to be. They may not perform at the level that you want them to be, but they're there. And your input into that team is as great as anything. And how that team performs may often depend on you.
So we're not islands, right? We're not by ourselves in the world, and we're certainly not by ourselves in the workplace. If we are, there's something wrong. In my case, I'm part of anywhere between 5 and 8 different new product development teams any given time. Works kind of like an orchestra, right? We all have our particular instrument to play. Sometimes we pass the baton, who gets to wave it and all that kind of stuff. But it's together we get things done. So I have responsibilities, things I need to physically do. But to do that, I have to huddle with a whole bunch of other people, designers, marketing people, engineers, tool design specialists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in order to get my things done. And conversely, I help them get their things done. Drawing review, for example, the engineers make drawings, they do that all day, click, 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 boom, there's a model and it can print out an engineering drawing. But part of what I bring to the party is the old guy experience, having been there, done that, customer complaints, commentary, field trouble, factory issues, all those kind of real life things that, particularly some of our younger engineers, new, fresh out of school, just haven't had to deal with. And I don't have it with me today, but I always carry a red pen around. Because I had a boss many years ago who every Christmas time passed out, everybody on the staff got a big box of red pens. And the speech was the same every year. Merry Christmas, use them. And we were expected to when we do drawing reviews particularly, because way up front, I think was Michael that mentioned, it's so cheap comparatively to fix a problem way up front in the design phase. So way up front, we look at that and go, how are you going to measure this? Well, no, I don't care what the computer clicked. How is somebody in the factory going to figure out where this point out here in the middle of nowhere space relates to the edge of this part? How are they going to measure that in real life? Oh, so that's part of my job. That I have that in here and in here, and so we work together, and it's always a team effort. You can't do everything yourself. It's physically impossible to know all the things, unless you're making a one-off widget maybe. But in a production environment like I work in, it takes, I won't say a village, but it's certainly a big team. Every one of my projects, we have procurement people, project management people, industrial design, manufacturing engineering, finance, quality, you name it. There's 8 or 10, 12 functions in the room during the meetings, database, IT folks, just because we can't do our work without each other.
So one of the things you remember from the introduction, there's something that we all, for the most part, share in common. Not only do we have technical certifications, CQEs, and those of that nature that are a demonstration of our technical expertise in quality science. Another thing that we all have in common, for the most part, is a certified quality manager organizational excellence. And what that is it's an exercise in facilitating teamwork, facilitating organizational excellence, which involves bringing in a cross-functional team, people of subject matter experts to work together to accomplish a common goal. I think one thing that those of us on this panel probably excel at is that we're great communicators and people persons. We don't have a hard time getting into a group of people and not only talking but also listening. And sometimes it's very hard to bring a cross-functional team together because everybody has their own agenda. And I think when you find a average quality professional, they're able to sit in a room and talk quality science. When you find a great quality professional, they're able to sit in a room and engage people on multiple different disciplines and different levels and bring that team together and facilitate growth in the team.
Thank you, Sean, about cross-functional teams, or the whole team, because you need that mix in order to be sure that you're looking at this one issue. How does that one issue affect some other product or something else down the road? So you need to look at that full read across and be able to problem solve, not just for this one problem, but what's going to happen in the future or what happened in past product that you had. So that whole team concept, you need the mix of people that can touch on each of these areas.
Yeah, I'm going to quadruple that collaboration that you hear the word all the time, and teamwork, and then having the willingness to listen to the people who really do know what's going on, that touch things daily. I mean, I have worked with teams, and I've asked my teams, I want you almost like Zen to be so in tune with your value stream, to use the buzzwords, that you hear that machine if it's off on a harmonic noise or something different. Maybe go ask why, or go observe and see why. Why is that sounding different than you expect that you see every day? Sometimes some interesting things can be discovered, but yeah, I'm not much for people who want to run from an issue or run away. I want the inquisitive people on my team, and I don't want someone that just hits the send button and sends that 20 to 150 email. And everybody's asking, hey, somebody tell me what's going on. Well, why didn't somebody go out and figure out what's going on? You know, where are those doers again? Anyone can sit in the office and punch a key and somebody let me know what's happening. Well, okay, we gotta have somebody go do that. And I'd rather be working with the doers than sitting in the office spewing out more noise in the system that needs 5,000 responses then. It's a non-value added. Yeah, it's a waste sometimes.
Thank you. My question is, what tools or processes do you guys use to determine how you're doing as an organization on an operational level?
We use a number of indicators, and I certainly can't list them all, because I don't have that good of a memory anymore. But the big ones, from operational quality type things, are DPPM, a measure of how our customers find their expectations being met. We measure return on allowances, dollars spent on replacing things that weren't right. We measure throughput. So if you're at a machine process, for example, if you ran 100 of them, how many come out right on the other end? Sequence to sequence to sequence from start to finish. A rather recent one in the last year and a half or so, we've actually started measuring, I'm not sure what the official name of it is, but imagine you have people with standard work at their work cells, and there's a process they're supposed to follow and things they're supposed to be doing, work instructions type stuff. We have auditors that go out and see how they're doing. It's very interesting. We first started that because we found that about 50 to 55% of the standard work people are supposed to doing, A, B, C, D, E in this order, was actually being done that way. The other 45 to 50% was something else. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you did, you don't know what happened to cause the effect, good or bad, that you got. And so we've really keyed on that one organizationally and found that it helps drive much more attention to detail. If you do the process and you get the right result, that's better for quality. If you have a problem with the process, maybe there's a reason that you thought you couldn't do the process the way the work instructions and standard work said, then it's encouraged to take a look at that and say, okay, why isn't this working for these guys or gals? And what do we need to change to get the result or make it easier and get the same result? Do it differently, get the right result, whatever how we want to look at it. And so it's really helped a lot in, I'll say, job satisfaction, because people are not frustrated by being forced to do something that the machine guys know what's going on, right? Some guy comes in and says, no, you got to do it this way. They'll roll their eyes, give a big sigh, and go do it that way, knowing full well that's not the right thing to do. So they have now, there's a forum, when the auditor's out, they can whistle people over and say, hey, this standard work thing just didn't work, and here's why. They can pass that on. We found that when new standard work gets created for new parts or processes, that the conversation is much more detailed and much more open, where people can actually share their true thoughts and feelings and not feel like, well, here comes some guy who, I won't say wear a tie because we don't do that much anymore, but back in the day, the guy with the tie would show up and run off at the mouth because he went to college, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Well, now that those barriers have broken down, and so for us, those are the big measures, those kind of things that show results and how we're doing, both at our internal level and externally. There's a few that come to mind.
Very good question, because again, you can get any kind of answer. I'll throw just one more out there. It could be almost like cascading scorecards, but again, what goes on the scorecard then? Just in a very generic sense, if I'm looking at doing an audit, and if I'm with a senior leadership or executive team, I don't know, 5 to 8 should be all I see up there. I've been in places where they've got 30 or 40. You're not running the organization if you're thinking you're getting all that So you need that strategic alignment through some measures. Is it profit margin contribution? Is it warranty as a cost of goods sold? You know, you have to have something at a higher level that then can break down, if I were in my manufacturing days, to that frontline level, finally down in the department. But a key is alignment, getting strategic alignment to, again, the vision, the mission, all that has got to be more than a conglomeration of adverbs thrown on a placard on the wall. You have to be measuring something to see, are you really moving forward? Are you profitable? You're going to be around 5 years, 10 years. In our world, as Brian was saying, there's a lot, even in healthcare, of measures, of performance measures of what are going on. But yeah, we're finding those 5 areas to start to target folks to say, you know, are we using our resources efficiently? Are we good stewards of the resources? And in many cases, because, again, these economic winds of change that are hitting our particular industry now. But so, yeah, long answer, but kind of say, you know, cascading scorecards. We could do 8 hours on that, but yeah, all kinds of measures are out there. Pick the right ones.
I think one of the changes that I've seen probably in the last 5 or 10 years has been identifying key processes within the company and then measuring the inputs and the outputs of those processes. And it could be everything from, you know, what are you really good at? Some people are really good at the financial end. Other people are really good at injection molding. Other people are really good at hiring and training people. You know, what are your core elements within your company? And then what comes into those elements and what goes out of those elements, and how are you managing those? And you can determine what type of measures you want from there. That's usually a pretty good way to take a look at what measures might be available.
Just to wrap it around, the things could be like surgical start time every day. What's first case? Is first case on time? If not, why not? Just as another example, I mean, that's, you know, there's oodles out there of things that could be done. So.
Hi. Now my question is, what would the supply chain have to do with the products, or if the machine is not running right, or if you hear, do you guys ever look at that part of it? Like if the supplies came in wrong, what would you do about that?
Oh, yes, there's what's that comment? You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and it does go back in supply chains today. I'll speak and throw it over. Very definitely in that upfront work, the sourcing, that sourcing decision, with the manufacturing hat on, it's a lot. I won't say it's easier, but you have your specifications, you have drawings, you have test methods, you have things you can put in contract or agreements. Healthcare, if I flip back into the new role I'm in, that world I'm in, it's more you're having to rely on these FDA-approved suppliers that claim they're ISO 13485 certified. They're offering these products, Band-Aids, gauze, catheters, et cetera. We don't specify, you know, the plastic to be used in that molding or the wires, but we're getting much more adept at being able to ask very pointed challenges when there is a need for a root cause. Of, are you doing tensile testing? What are you doing on your line versus it's just been approved, it got validated 5 years ago. So supply chain most definitely needs to be involved, and needs to be involved right at the design point in the manufacturing world.
I'll give you an example of something that happened in a supply chain. We had some steel that was coming in for a brake operation, which bends the part and forms it. Well, for about 2 or 3 months, we had really, really good parts, and all of a sudden, in the course of a week, we got all bad parts, and they started cracking when we were forming them. And of course, you blame the operator, or you blame the machine, or you blame whatever else is going on that day, because that's what you do with a cup of coffee in your hand. The reality was, we found out that the supplier had changed some of the components within the steel, which changed the hardness, which means it isn't going to form the way it should. And once we discovered that, it was easier to go back and say, okay, look, I've got X amount of dollars worth of scrap on my shop floor, and kind of try and hold the supplier accountable for something that they changed without notifying us.
I mean, I guess I would say for my part, as being a manager at a multi-tiered supplier, supplier management is a fine line between management and supplier bullying. Give your suppliers the benefit of the doubt that it's not always their fault, that there may be opportunities in your process that should be looked at, that should be available to accommodate some variation in their process. You cannot hold your suppliers to a higher standard than you would expect your customers to hold you to. because then you wind up getting something that we call around my building called the a-hole tax. If you're going to bother me every day about every part I make, then every time I quote a job, it's going to cost more. So it's got to be a fiscal responsibility. You don't want to be the customer that's hard to deal with. You want to collaborate with your suppliers, not bully them.
Yeah, fully agree with what Sean's saying, but sometimes on launch though, there are a few suppliers out there that will cut corners, and they got in the door, they're supplying, and I mean, we all have the war stories. Some of the simple ones, a poly bag going over a car seat, 3 mils, 3 mils thick. All of a sudden, the first 2 months they're great, and here came the great big shipment full of 1.5 mil bags. In our inspection plan, we were miking those bags. So we caught it at the dock, and we did accept their apology. They're sure it was a mistake. Said, yeah, but just don't let it happen again. You got to take this all back. You have to expedite in what we quoted and what you're supposed to supply, because that bag can pierce easier, and we can't afford the warranty cost at tenfold the cost and our reputation. So very much you have to have that basis in the relationship on trust, but a well-founded agreement between what the specs are, and that handshake when that contract's signed at that price to say, I'm going to give you 100% of that every day, every time.
And to jump on that, one of the keys I found is up front, you have, as you're designing things, if I'm bringing, somebody's going to make this cup, for example, and we're having our drawing review, bring in the supplier. That's one of the big things we lean on them. They're the experts in how to make cups or whatever it is. We're buying it from them. Tear our drawing apart, please. Tell us, how it could be made easier, faster, cheaper, better. If we did something stupid in our design, tell us. That's part of what we expect our suppliers to do, is to help us help ourselves. And so when you start out from a partnership perspective, rather than the dang it, I don't care, just make it, shut up or I'll beat you some more. It's you can't do that business well that way. And so when you start up front and you have clear expectations and you have the best minds involved in this is what we're trying to get to and this is how we can help make it, you end up with a really good design that is efficient, effective, manufacturable, and as inexpensive as can be. I've had cases where, somebody at Steelcase decides, this would be a great resin to use. First thing you do when you sit down with the supplier says, whoa, you really don't want to use that kind of plastic for that application. And here's why. And then the light bulbs start popping up, and okay, yeah, you're right, that's my bad. I copied and pasted from something else and forgot to change it, or things like that. It happens. And so, suppliers can be great allies if you treat them as allies and partners. Or you can try and be mean to them, and you end up with, paying the tax and giving them mad enough where they feel entitled to do something out of, I won't say spite, but that's the only word that comes to mind, just because if you don't care, I don't either. And if we have a good relationship, we're all better off.
Thank you.
One more quick question.
Where's that mic man?
Take one more, and then we're going to go back to a couple prepared questions and come back to the audience.
I was just looking over some profiles and remembering your introductions, and I would like to know exactly what the 6 Sigma black belt is.
Well, I'll go while they're thinking, because I like to talk. You're
the one that's got it on you.
Yeah, I put it out there. Why'd I do that? I think once again, it does show, again, you can take an exam or you can show through submittal of several projects that you're good at, again, problem solving, root cause analysis, using another acronym, DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. That you can go through these phases of problem solving such that you're trying to get a process where the one measurement or one benchmark, back to what's a scorecard or benchmark is, are you doing something that's at a rate of 3.4 parts defective per million or less? 6 Sigma. That's kind of a 6 Sigma benchmark that's in the literature. So you're really looking for driving towards dang near perfection, 99.99997. I can't remember how many decimals that goes, parts per million. But you're looking for near perfection, but that's based on if your specifications true that you're using to run all that fancy math. So yeah, you run a lot of the math, a lot of Minitab, you do this stuff, you still have to have someone that can step back and analyze, is all that data really applicable to what I'm doing here, and will this be a robust process or product and reliable? So Six Sigma is just a fancy way of saying a whole lot of problem solving and data analysis.
But to answer your question the way I was thinking, so some of us have got the certification. We had to submit projects. Couldn't just go take a test. You had to prove that you've used tools effectively, sworn affidavits from people who were in a position to know. Then we were allowed to take the exam and demonstrate for several hours worth of pencil shoving and a couple aspirin at the end. That we had mastered concepts and theories and at least knew in our head the applications of all those things. Because every project you don't necessarily use the whole list of tools, right? You may use 3 or 4. I kind of got my favorite ones that I like, and the other ones kind of sit on the shelf unless I really have some kind of crazy need, but sometimes the simplest tools work the best. So for us to get that, it was, I won't say insurmountable. The test was like most of those certification tests, it was tough. But in this case, it was a defined body of knowledge that we had to prove we understood and could apply, along with having a couple projects to let us into taking the exam to begin with.
The other thing in the black belt side of it, okay, is there's different levels of that particular certification for that discipline. The highest level is a master black belt, which basically passing that exam right now, last I knew there were 38 in the world that have passed that. And basically at that level, what that is overseeing other black belts as far as the job, as far as their application is concerned. You got a black belt, you've got a green belt, you've got a yellow belt, similar to the Pacific Rim type, like karate, jiu-jitsu, that type of a thing. And that's came back during the early 80s is where Six Sigma came about. Brian mentioned about the 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And actually it started out with Motorola when back in the early 80s they started making cell phones. And they've got all of these little components in this small little piece that at that time, the small little piece was about that size. Okay. But there were all these electrical components, and they wanted to make sure that when they sold this $500 piece of equipment to somebody that's going to be driving down the road or carrying it, that it's going to work. And so that's where their measurement was as far as defects per million opportunities along the way, because at that point in time, we were measuring quality. If we had 99% quality, 1% defect rate, that was fabulous. Okay, a 99.1 ends up being 10,000 defects per million as opposed to 3.4 defects per million. So that's what drove a lot of manufacturing industry down to the defects per opportunities. So that's basically what we're doing is we're applying statistics as far as the analysis in order to reduce the variation that we would be experiencing within that particular process to a point to where it's almost immeasurable to the human eye.
Six Sigma folks and ASQ specifically has different certifications within the Six Sigma realm. So the Black Belt and Master Black Belt aren't the only ones. There are several other ones out there in case you're interested in taking a look at them. You can go to the ASQ.org website and ask for the body of knowledge for any of those, and they'll show you some of the things that you could use or understand in order to get those certifications.
Yeah, because some of you are in the industry today yourselves, here as adult learners, you may hear there is a movement out there. There are some folks that are lean trained that really jab the Six Sigma people a little bit to say there are some folks or camp out there that may say Six Sigma people that have ruined things. I just think those people talking don't really understand there's a place for the application of Six Sigma tools within the lean umbrella. It's just, where do you use it? Again, back to reducing variation. So there's always going to be a need for some higher level analytics based on the scope of the problem or scale of the problem. But others just feel Six Sigma people ruin it because they're heroics. They're not the sensei-mentor relationship. They're not imposing and teaching people. Well, I counter that sometimes you don't have time to take the 5 to 6 months to mentor a group through an exercise when it's pouring acid on top of the operation at that moment in time. So you got to stop that. Then you can go back into training mode. Then you can put your lean hat back on.
How many different ways can you say plan, do, check, act?
Yeah, PDS.
Just as a reminder to my students, you've had some exposure to the Six Sigma dynamic process when you did your case analysis. You defined the problem, measured the extent of the problem, you analyzed the problem, improved the problem, and developed some means to control the problem to make the fix stick. So without using the quality tools that are available at each stage, you actually have some exposure to that, and you've used that. Six Sigma practitioners will apply quality tools at every stage, and they'll solve major problems with that dynamic process in the industry.
Thanks, Don. What are your weaknesses as a quality professional?
I guess for myself, I am absolutely flawless and perfect in every way, and I have no weaknesses.
There's humility.
No, I think I find myself, one, it is very easy to get very, very immersed in the muck and mire of problem solving on the go as opposed to proactively eliminating the event. So sometimes we get very, very bogged down into firefighting, and we stop looking at ways to actually avoid the fire. I would say another one of my prime weaknesses that I try and work on is not to make emotional decisions. Sometimes it's very hard to do as a quality professional because we have to have a thick skin because it always feels like people are pointing at you and blaming you and not wanting you around very much. So trying to make logical, analogical decisions without getting emotional about it is sometimes very challenging.
What I have learned over 30 some odd years is that what makes a good quality engineer can also make a not so good quality engineer. And by that, what I mean is we tend to be very technical, very detailed, analytical, focused type kind of folks, right? Because that's the way we're wired and we're good at it, and that's how we end up in jobs like this. But on the other hand, it also, for me, has been an issue because I am that way, to take off the quality guy technical hat and then converse with other people who aren't that way, marketing people, sales people, some non-technical management types. It's a different kind of discussion. It's a different context. There's words and acronyms and things like that that they probably don't know or at least don't use very often. And for me, it's always a problem when I step outside of the quality engineer guy role and start to have those conversations, particularly at higher levels, because I'm just not comfortable. I don't play in that sandbox very often. I'm not good at it, and apparently it shows. because it makes that communication difficult. And so for me, that's a big weakness. And one thing I would say is work on the soft skills. They're at least as important to career success as the hard technical stuff. There's lots of people who can crunch numbers and look at things and fix problems, but the ones who can do that and communicate at a huge broad depth and range of levels of an organization do much better.
Thank you. How does quality impact the consumer?
That's a Michael Hurt.
You need happy customers.
Yeah. Well, while Michael's thinking of that,
Ask the
I'll stay
Volkswagen
with
owners.
healthcare. I'll just stay in healthcare very, very briefly. Is just that, in that every encounter is unique because it's so personal. If you're exposed to, again, a healthcare environment, you need to go. You want the best outcome. So, in your opinion, or to you, you want everything done. Whereas all these other influences are out there. You don't want to overdiagnose. You don't want to overtest. So you have all this range of what you need to listen to the patient, but you also have to balance it with sound medical judgment and find that happy medium. So every encounter is unique because it's not, we're not an assembly line, obviously. It's not, and we're getting more and more to specialized medicine, right down to the genome or the genetic level of even treatment levels being formulated specifically for you. But there comes a cost for that. So very different, but I know I looked at Michael because I think of his automotive, maybe very similar. You just have a different kind of perceptions of the customer.
One of the things that's surprising to me is how, no, it's not surprising, I guess I shouldn't have said that because it's really not. Most people aren't aware of the things that go on behind the scenes. So sometimes you as a customer don't know that there are 9 people up here who have already looked at your product twice and said it's good, and you perceive it as bad. You don't know all of the things that go on behind the scenes, whether it's from design or whether it's from healthcare or whether it's from fenestration, that's a word, or any of the other folks up here. So quality impacts consumers in different ways, and each of us is impacted separately because we all have a different perspective of what quality should be and how much I'm willing to pay for it.
Think about tonight, and you're all sitting here, been here for an hour and a half, and part of the benefit that for your investment is not having to write a paper. That's quality. That's your perception of quality, right? Some of your fellow students here that are not here, in order for them to get that same quality or that same outcome, they've got to invest different things in order to do that. So the consumer is the one that identifies the perception, their perception of what quality is. So they're the ones that are making that decision. You as a consumer tonight, somebody that buys a car, the consumer that goes into the hospital, their perception of quality is ever changing. So there's not, I used to use the example, McDonald's. One of their successes is that they had work instructions for every single job. You learned how to be a team member at McDonald's, learned how to support one another. And the consistency that they had from a McDonald's in Kalamazoo to a McDonald's in Florida to a McDonald's that's up here on College Avenue, or excuse me, on Michigan Avenue, is the same consistency. Now, does it meet the same consistency as a Ruth Chris burger? Probably different, as far as the quality is concerned. But that's, again, the perception of the consumer. So the consumer is actually the person that's defining what they perceive as being quality.
And that brings us really full circle back to the earlier discussions about giving you all your marketing focus discussions. You're going out to quality function deploy. You're trying to go out and determine what are those attributes of a product you want to market. You can only still try to hit as much of the sweet spot. If I go back to a distribution curve, maybe if I use that analogy, you're trying to get in there maybe 2 sigma levels. Trying to do your best, because it goes back to the budgeting. What can you do? What can you sell it for? What kind of problems might we have? When we're getting at the end of the day, are we going to be able to have a viable entity here, a company, making something, and you're still not going to hit 100% because someone out there is going to say, I didn't get value from your particular product in my case. And you have to listen to that. You have to. But then you make those decisions of, do I change, or do I say, I can afford writing that one off? All these decisions are going on constantly in flux. So it does kind of bring it all to one circle there a little bit of what can you sell and what do they want? And how will you assure it? Because you can't control it. Yeah.
Thank you. What is a recent problem that you guys have faced, and what processes have you used to solve it?
Very nice.
More
What should
people.
say?
Put people on it. Sort it.
Sean's packing up over there.
Time to go. One of the big missteps that my organization uses, and we're just finally trying to weed ourselves out of this practice, is you identify a problem and you throw people at it. You do more sorting, you do more checking. So we're trying to get better at the 4 C's and countermeasure problems and use the TPS system to better equip ourselves to go see and understand a problem and solve it with our mind and not with brute force. So recently we had some issues with one of our customers where we shipped some product out that it failed to go through one of our processes. The immediate reaction was, oh my God, we have to bring everything back and go back through all our processes. But in the interim, we had already developed a process where we started better tracking whether or not things were going through that process. So we were able to take our time, catch our breath, go back, review our paperwork, and we were able to isolate the lots that were suspect, whereas in the past we would have just 100%ed everything.
Yeah, I was involved with one that was just so broken, anything was an improvement, but trying to keep it very generic and short. Yeah, this process involved chemistry, foam, it was foam chemistry, so you had a couple things coming together, isocyanate and polyol coming into a pour head, anybody who's made foam. That's the scenario. So anyways, going out to analyze, first, how do you solve the problem? The problem was 2 to 3 shifts of scrap per month being made, just making cushions, throwing them in the dumpster, going out to get in it. And so again, going live, going Gemba, to use the terms, going live, observing, watching, finding those key process indicators, those KPIs, and just studying. And everything was broke in this process. So at the end of the day, it went down to even the engineer, the foam tech, had purposely set the alarms on the pour head. I'll just graphically say, he set his alarms out here when the process really needed to be here to make good product. Why did he do that? He was tired of running out and answering the alarms on the machine all day. So, you had to have these come to the river meetings and go, you can't do that. Number one, get back into what really needs to be there, and we need to go to and answer the alarms to analyze what's going wrong. So it became wow, that took 3 months to finally get that from start to finish fixed, but when done, it was really done well, using a lot of PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Enact, and involving collaboration, cross-functional team members. So that's a white paper I think I'm going to write someday on that one. It was something else. Yeah. It had been going on for years, by the way. Yeah.
Anybody here ever put together a flow chart? You know what they are? What sequence of events results in a product or service? One day I got a phone call at work. It was my daughter. She says, Dad, I can't get the car out of the garage. I said, open the garage door. She says, that doesn't work, Dad. Don't worry about it. That's not the problem. Okay, so in my brain, I started going through this flow chart of what has to happen when you back the car out of the garage. Does it start? Yes. Will it go in gear? Yes. Does it go forward? Yes. Does it go backwards? No. Well, my first thought was, okay, so this is a transmission problem, so I'm not going to rotate the tires and change the wiper blades, right? Okay. So we finally got down to the point where, by understanding this flow chart, we figured out why the car wasn't able to get out of the garage, called a tow truck and had them fix the transmission, and that's my easy story.
It's a huddle.
Any more fun stories?
And by chemistry, Brian meant Breaking Bad.
When developing future products, how can quality be built in?
So since I do that 50-something hours a week, I'll start it out anyway. There are a number of things that we do at Steelcase to get the ball rolling up front. One of the primary ones, very first out, is to look at anything we know about similar products. I think I mentioned that earlier, right? So we'll do a data search for years worth of history that we've kept on products and see what worked, what didn't work, what customers had to say about things, and trying to avoid previous sins, if you want to call it that. We then work to bring that information into the design arena very early. We do multiple failure mode effect analyses on the design. From that, we develop testing criteria. We'll develop which things need to be called out as key design features on our engineering drawings. It may help us design something completely differently than the first bright idea that came along. We'll do those design reviews I mentioned with ourselves a couple times over before we even bring in outside people, just to keep ourselves honest. We will do multiple fit and finish reviews. So we'll get the first concept in the room, we'll bring it in, set it up, and go, okay, this is what marketing said they wanted, this is what industrial design said it had to look like, and all those other kind of things, and say, here we are. Do we have it? Yes or no? Yes, yes, yes. Well, yeah, we got it, but nobody likes it. Well, okay, time out. What do we really want then, now that we've decided what we asked for wasn't what we really meant to ask for? And we'll do those kind of things. Continually through the process, we get to the point where we issue engineering drawings and specifications. Those parts get made, they get PPAP'd. Everybody knows about PPAPs, I assume. Make sure we're getting the parts we think we're getting according to the designs. Then we'll do final pilot runs. We'll do IT checks to make sure the databases are linked properly, and so that if you enter this number, that's what you get asked for at the machine and factory end of things. We'll do a big grand hands-off pilot at the very end where we just enter some product, hit the go button like we're our own customer. Everybody stands back and magic happens. Have it shipped to ourselves, and then again do a big fit and finish review to say, okay, one last time, do we have what we think we wanted? Is it working the way we want it to work? If so, we go to a bunch of toll gates along the way. That's the last toll gate. We get permission from senior leadership to pull the trigger and open the doors for product entry.
That was pretty comprehensive. That was good. That was good.
It needs to be.
How many, it does need to be, how many manufacturing technology type people might be in the house or not? Getting a CAD work or stuff like that, any math modeling or stuff like that? That's the only quick story I'll share is where we went off the track and not doing the design reviews some years back is when, more than a couple years back, many years back, when CAD was coming out and everyone was math modeling. And we were just, again, wanting to speed the market. So we pushed math models out, sent them out for quote. People were making things, and then suddenly you see that this whole size on this product came out like 0.103 rather than 0.125. It's because the computer generated that whole dimension based on the math model. It didn't become manufacturable because then people were out grinding down pins to either mold to hit the print because it was on the print that there needed to be a 0.103 hole. Then you brought it in, put the assembly together, and you drove a standard screw in it anyways, and put stress fracture in the parts, and over time they failed. And it took years to work through that to say we can't just be doing this because it's fast. We have to have these design reviews and let people have some input to say, no, that should be a standard size, an 1/8 inch or whatever, 0.125, and then load that back into the math model and let it blow the parent-child relationship back and get to a product that's manufacturable and can have less interruption over its life cycle. So Brian did very good of taking through all the steps that are needed. There was one example where we went off the rails for a while, for several years, of being enamored with just getting the math model out there and going fast and just going way too fast, and it cost us, with the warranty and follow-up costs that are 10 to 100-fold because we didn't take time up front.
Part of what we're doing now that is we're teaching our customers as far as preventative actions, because the components now are interrelational into the overall vehicle system. We make, one of the components we manufacture are door handles, exterior door handles. And it used to be all they did was just open and close. Well, now we make open and close a door and basically open. Now they hold buttons in them in order for you to get passive entry. And depending on who that customer is, you push a button and it's going to unlock. You put your hand behind it, it might unlock. But if you push the button and you hold your hand behind it at the same time, the system doesn't know what you want to do. It doesn't know whether you want it to unlock or lock, as far as that's concerned. The other thing is that that button is connected to the rest of a system. What's inside of the car that actually does all of that communication. But yet, if you as a consumer put your hand behind the handle, push the button at the same time, and it doesn't unlock, you go to the dealer and the dealer replaces the handle, because people didn't walk through the whole system. So we're educating our customers now with tools that are looking at interactions in the design phase, as far as what this particular component that's supplied by a different supplier has on our particular component. And that's a simple thing as far as the buttons. But you may have different interactions when you put 3 or 4 different pieces of material together. Sometimes it's your customer that actually is manufacturing the part. Steelcase manufactures some of the components, and then their suppliers manufacture components. And those two components need to be assembled together. And then part of that design review is to make sure that that's going to happen. That's designed for manufacturability or designed for assembly. So those are also pieces, along with what Brian talked about, are necessary in order to prevent the issues.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Well, if there's not any questions, I say we wrap it up. I want to thank Sean, Jim, Brian, Mike, Sharon, and Brian for your time and your dedication to helping us present this to the student board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
So how do we do? How do we do? All right.